There's no one else ahead of you. There's no one behind you. There's no one ahead of you. It's just you.
I would say we're always where we're meant to be. I know it's so cliche.
No, it's so cliche, but you're exactly where you need to be.
Where you need to be in this now moment every single time.
I've had conversations with several people, and I think one of the things that every single person can relate to is feeling behind in life. And this is something that I definitely feel from time to time. And most of the time, I know that I'm feeling like that when I look back at my life. And sometimes I'm like, okay, when I was in undergrad, why didn't I do like computer science? And not necessarily because I'm passionate about computer science, but because I think, oh, maybe computer science would have put me in a better paying job so that I would have saved enough money to be where I need to be right now. And then, but because I have such a great awareness that I've cultivated within myself, I'm able to see the thought come in, and I'm able to be like, oh, okay, I see you again. I see the thought of reminding me that I'm behind in life, sort of, right? Because that's where it comes from. It comes from the feeling of like, okay, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. There are kind of sort of thoughts of regret of like, oh, why didn't I pursue this, X years ago? Why didn't I? Maybe that would have put me on a better path where like I would have saved enough money, where I would have maybe flourished and I would be in a different timeline right now. But my awareness helped me understand that is just like a limiting belief, right? Because what is preventing me from like connecting
to that right now?
To that right now, right? Yeah. Because we have access to everything right now. So it's that like little voice that just comes in your head that you really don't have to believe. You don't have to go with the voice, but it's natural that it comes. Yeah, it's natural because of the conditioning, right? We're so conditioned that we're supposed to be somewhere by age something, right? Because it's like, if you're in your 30s as a woman, for example, you are not married, you don't have kids, you don't have a husband, like, and I can speak from my experience. Yeah. The amount of pressure that I get from family, right, and from relatives about like not having a husband, not having a child, they're so concerned about my life that I don't have that. Yeah. When I literally,
you're okay with
I'm
it.
I'm okay with it,
you feel
right?
content and fulfilled.
But it doesn't mean that like I don't get hurt when they make comments like that, right? It hurts me, right? It affects me, even though like within I'm content, it still like affects me, right? When they bring up comments like that, right? So because of the conditioning is why like we think we need to be somewhere. We think that there's a destination that we need to get to. When like right now where you are is completely okay if you're content with it.
I 100% agree with you. And just resonating with what you said, like when you say looking back, if I had made this decision, this is where I would be at. And I find myself in those moments a lot. I would say for me, it's not necessarily yours, for example, would have been like maybe choosing a different major when you were in undergrad. For me, looking back, it's been certain jobs that I have left that were, I would say, in that time were on the right track, on the right trajectory,
quote unquote, right?
The right pay, the right, and because I was chasing this feeling of fulfillment, like I want to feel fulfilled, I want to feel this, and so I'd leave that and go into the next thing, and only to go into this next thing and realize like, oh, I still don't feel fulfilled. I still don't feel like, but then I've lost the trajectory and the momentum that I had in the other, like in the other space. And now I'm in this space and I'm beginning again. And to be honest, I've gotten to a point where I feel like I've lost a lot by virtue of that movement. And I was like, I could have been a lot farther along had I just stuck, like picked a path, stuck to it and continued going, and maybe fulfillment would have found me in that stage. And the other thing too as well, it's like the monetary thing that comes in, like the finances.
It's mostly the finances and things that like you're supposed to have externally.
Exactly.
Like in my case, it's finances. I don't care about, you know, I haven't talked about this before, like the thing about children and husband, not so much, but it's about like that financial security of being somewhere.
Exactly. But for me, I was even, you know, looking back, and the other day, I had a meeting with someone who's like a retirement coach, and you know, they were telling me, like, you know, if 10 years ago when you got your first job, or like 13 years ago when you got your first job, if you had been putting away this amount of money, this is where you'd be at
right now.
And they were calculating like, oh, you know, in your age, you know, where you are in your age right now, in your 30s, but if you start now and by the time you get to retirement, it's about 60, 65, this is how much you'd need to put in to get to your desired amount. And I'm looking back and I'm thinking, my God, like, why did I not start then? And I started to feel like very behind, almost like I wish I had done this sooner. I wish I had made different choices. I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, I'm actually okay. It's where I am now, and I can begin now. That's gone, but I can begin now to get to where I need to be.
Absolutely.
Does that mean maybe I might have to find more income streams? Absolutely. Does it mean that there are certain things that I might have to go without in the meantime to make sure that I'm, you know, safe and secure at a certain point? Yes, but I'm content and I'm okay. But that's not every single day, because then there's days when I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, and I feel very frantic.
Yeah.
And it's a very confusing space to be at. And I have so many feelings about it coming up in me, and sometimes I have zero feelings at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't.
No,
yeah,
I go
it's
through
a very
waves.
confusing space.
I go through waves where like I am so abundant. I'm
Yeah.
feeling so at peace. I'm feeling calm. I'm feeling regulated.
Yeah.
I'm doing great. Like most of the time, in fact, I'm operating from that, from feeling like, okay, I'm so happy with where I am, and part of that is because of the internal work, right? If I hadn't done this amount of internal work, that's where all of my focus would be. Oh my gosh, I'm so behind. All of my energy will be directed to the idea that I'm so behind. And because I've experienced that before, like in like years back where I hadn't done this amount of work internally, like I hadn't started this journey, I used to feel behind. And at the time, the feeling was completely different, because then at the time I would shame myself a lot. I would criticize myself, judge myself, look at other people, compare where they are at, and compare and look at myself and just feel so bad about myself, right? But I've done so much work to get here right now, where like even when the thoughts about like, oh my God, I should have majored in this and maybe that would have put me somewhere, right? Even those thoughts come because thoughts are random, right? It doesn't mean that when the thought comes that it means something. Like you're the one who's making it mean something, right? So if the thought comes, it's your job to be aware of the thought and be like, okay, I don't need to identify with that thought, right? Because we are not our thoughts, we can observe them. So it's your job to be able to see the thoughts that are coming and purge them out and be like, I don't want to identify with that fearful thought that tells me that I'm behind. I want to identify with this loving thought that tells me that I'm taken care of. Like, what do I lack right now, right? That's the thought that I want to identify with. But before I got to this point, I used to be very fearful, right? So I think the reason why like sometimes you feel like so content and you're okay with that is because you've also done a lot of work to get here.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't do that internal work to understand that like everything comes from within, the fulfillment is much more within than like things will give you externally.
Any external reality,
like even when I have thoughts of like, oh, if I had majored in computer science or whatever major, that would have put me like on a better career path. That is literally not something I'm interested in. I absolutely have no interest, but it's just because of like
and there was
the
no
financial
guarantee that if you had done that, that would be the result.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not like that would have change my state of being, right? Which goes to speak to the fact that your state of being is what is important.
It's what
right?
counts,
Because right
literally.
now my state of being is beautiful. Like I
Yeah.
love this where I'm operating
I
from,
love that,
right? So even when
actually.
when I look at other people, sometimes I look at other people, friends, and I'm like, okay, they're doing this thing that looks amazing. So sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, they're ahead, or they're way ahead of me in terms of like their career, their finances and whatever. And that puts me, sometimes I feel sadness that like, okay, I'm not where I need to be.
Yeah.
But then I remind myself, like it's actually a lot of work that you have to do. It's the dance that you were talking about. You're not like, I don't think there's any point in life where you're not going to have thoughts of being behind. So the job is
always going
exactly
to be
it's
that
always
way.
going to be there.
Yeah.
The job is like cultivating that awareness so that you remind yourself like, oh no, that is coming from the old conditioning. It's coming from the matrix, right? From the conditioning that tells us like, you need to have this thing by age. Says who? Right? Says who says that?
No,
right?
and
This is your life.
It's your life, and it's your choices and the choices that you make. I don't believe in the concept that we need to have done something by whatever
age, whatever.
because we're all on very different paths.
Right.
We're all here for very different reasons. We're all working on so many different things. I genuinely think there are people that find themselves through their careers. There are people that find themselves through just being parents. That's also an option.
Yeah, that's an option too.
There are people who find themselves by defying all odds and deciding, you know what, I don't want a husband, I don't want kids, I don't want to be in the corporate world. I just want to be, and I want to do what fulfills me and what makes me happy. And I think every single person is on their own path. And that's why for the most part, I think what I do, I go internally, and for me, it's a feeling that's internal. I just realized this lately. I don't go externally and compare myself against
That's
a
amazing.
different person.
That's amazing, because that's something that I do. And in the past, I used to do it more often than I do it now.
Yeah. So I don't go externally and compare myself to the other person, because my thinking is always, I don't know this person. I don't know what their experiences have been. I don't know why they're where they are. I literally have no insight into their life and why they're where they're at. I only know my journey. I know where I am.
What about like friends?
I know
friends that you kind of know them intimately.
Yeah.
And you like, maybe they quote unquote, they're like ahead, quote unquote, which what like the conditioning tells us, like so and so is ahead of you because they have this external thing. Because it's always about
sometimes
being
that
ahead.
happens.
Being ahead is about an external thing.
Like,
it's never.
true.
When do we talk about like you're ahead because you have this internal state of being? Like
Never, because
right?
you see, it's not visible, because it's always like what's visible externally that makes us think, oh, that person is ahead, that person is ahead. But I find for me like that it passes so quickly. While I feel it and I see it, I simply just, if you know someone intimately, like you know what it has taken for them to get there. If maybe they have this big job, you probably know the sacrifice that has gone behind it, because I always say for everything worth having, there's a price to pay. You having the material wealth, the car, the home, the this, the that, it comes at a cost. It comes, long hours. It comes at missing out,
cost
like
of
with
your
family
family,
time. It comes at the cost of sometimes even neglecting your own well-being and being focused so much on the external that you don't, go to the internal. And so when I look at people and where they're currently at, I always think of in the context of their life circumstances,
right?
And how have they gotten to where they need to be? What's the story behind that? And I also just look at my own circumstances, like how did I get to where I need to, where I am at right now? And so that removes the aspect of comparison, because I realize that we're all on very different journeys, and I recognize that your journey is not my journey, and what might make you happy and fulfill you may not be where what fulfills me. Because I've seen people, in the corporate world, who've gotten to like the highest of the highest levels, and they leave those roles to go and farm and be in the village and have like a cottage and slow down. And I've seen people who are living the very slow life, and then they're like, I don't want this anymore. I want to be out there and I want to make it. So it really depends on the stage that you're at and what drives you and what gives you a sense of fulfillment. Sometimes it's not what you have externally that gives you the sense of fulfillment and makes you feel like I'm exactly where I need to be at right now. Because there are times, even for me, when these things are happening and I'm like, why am I worried? I have a roof over my head. I have income coming in. I have this, I have that. But then there's still something in me that feels like I'm not fulfilled. And so it's never really about the external circumstances. It's internal. It's internal. And so that's why I guess it's important to go in and feel for that feeling and look at what exactly is it? Like what's that? What am I looking for? What am I seeking? And genuinely that's where I'm at right now in this, like in my life, because I don't want to chase externally. I just want to feel fulfilled, fulfilled on
content
the
with
content
life.
on the
You want to
inside.
feel at peace.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's amazing, and I completely get what you're saying, because that internal fulfillment is nothing that money can buy. It's nothing that any external thing that can buy. And I'm so amazed that like you didn't struggle with comparison, because I think that is like one of the struggles that I've dealt with in the past. Right now, of course, I'm at a different pace.
There have
but
been
in the past,
stages in my life where I have.
Yeah.
But I found like as I grow older, and like as I'm doing more internal work, and I've understood that there's, people have different journeys and different reasons for being here in this existence, I found that it has fallen away more and more. Yeah. And even when I'm beating myself up, it's like me against me. Like it's against the decisions that I made. It's against, I should be here, not because of where somebody else is, but because I feel this is where I should be at. I feel that way because I'm like, I know the potential that I have within me, but have I explored it? Because there's times when I've really procrastinated. There's times when I've made really poor choices. There's times where I know I've not applied myself, so I do know where I could be had I either made different choices, had I not procrastinated, had I not. So for me, it's like me against me, which sometimes I think can be even worse because it's like an internal conflict.
Yeah, no, I mean, like both of them are like valid, both of them are the same. So for me, what I'm hearing you say is that it stick and work to get there, and that is what I was saying, that like I used to compare in the past, but now I'm at a place where like I'm able to see it for what it is, right? And the comparison used to be like, okay, that person has this thing, right? And I used to feel jealous, right? And I used to think it's such a bad thing that I felt jealous of it. But now that I'm here, I've actually reframed jealousy. And it's one of the things that I like to talk about. Like when I see somebody doing quote unquote well, whatever they have, and if I feel some type of way, I feel jealous, I see that as information, that it's giving me information. Like, what is the thing that the person has? It tells me about my internal desires. It tells me about the desires. And so when I see them, because sometimes I see somebody, maybe they've been promoted to like a director of marketing or somewhere. Literally, I don't want to be a director of marketing. There's nothing about me that wants that. But sometimes it's like, is there a part of me that wants like an advancement in terms of like career advancement, even though like right now that's not where I am, right? I've been at places where like that's what I wanted, but it's like, what is the thing that you're seeing being projected externally, and what is that telling you about your internal desires? Because it's telling you there's a part of you that has this desire and you haven't honored it. And that's what you were saying about like, there's certain things that you want to do, but because of procrastination, because of like imposter syndrome, you've kind of gotten in your way, right? And that is like you getting in your way, right? It's not anyone getting in your way, it's you getting in your way. So I think like if somebody hasn't gotten in their way and they've been able to make it, right? When you see them, like for example, before I started sharing, like expressing myself online, I would see like people that I follow, people whose podcasts that I listen to, I would see them express themselves like so beautiful online, and then I would see that and I would feel some type of way because there's a part of me that wanted to self-express. And I don't know why I wasn't doing it. Right. So even if I was feeling jealousy, it's not out of malice. It's not because like, oh my gosh, like, I wish something happens to their expression. It's like information about like, okay, is there a part of me that I'm not honoring, right? And therefore, like, what can I do to honor that part of me? Right. So that comparison sometimes I see it as like it's detrimental in terms of like you have your own life. Right, you have you in your own reality. The other person is in their own reality. You can't compare yourself, like you were saying. Like you can't compare because you're taking different journeys. But sometimes it can give you information about like what are your desires that you have within that you're not honoring, and what can you do to be able to honor yourself.
I 100% agree with that, and I wish more people knew that. And thank you for sharing that, because I literally, whenever I see something in someone and a desire rises up in me, I always think like, you know, I actually like that. That tells me that there's something that I need to explore there.
Right.
What a lot of people do, and what I've noticed is when the feeling of jealousy comes in, instead of going inward and thinking like they have that thing and there's something in me that would want something similar. It may not be the exact thing, but I would want something similar. But what most people tend to do is then they just start projecting onto that person and they start attacking externally.
Yeah, because they're triggering your deep desire, but because you're not in touch with that.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Then you project
exactly. And so
them.
Instead of attacking that person, disliking them,
Especially
making mean
saying,
comments,
like, there's something I don't like about them, right?
Yeah,
when they say that,
exactly.
like, what is the thing about that person that I don't like?
There's something about them
there's
that just doesn't sit
like,
right with me.
Right.
There's something about, or even sometimes like just denying outrightly. So for example, like I know you've used, someone got a promotion and they got this and they got that. And so instead of being like, oh, you know, that's really nice for them, I would want that for myself, maybe not in that form. And sometimes we find ourselves tearing them down.
Yeah.
Like, oh, either they didn't deserve it, or I don't want that. I don't want to be busy all the time, and I don't want to be, and I don't. And so we tell ourselves all the reasons why we don't want that, but yet somehow internally you do feel that you want it. And you like, you know, make put down comments and doing this, and I find that that's pushing that very thing away, because you're denying it.
Yeah, you're not in touch with that part of you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You tend to then live in other people's realities, because then you're constantly thinking about them.
Exactly.
You're doing this, you're doing that, and what that does is that it takes all your energy and puts it in that other person's reality.
Absolutely.
And so instead of using that energy to work on your dreams, your desires, you're just literally wasting your energy and giving your life force away.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I find like the more, like the people who tend to get attacked because of this and that, they tend to get ahead faster. You know why? And I think I don't know. I think I know. It's because when all of these other people are using all their life force, all their energy, all their thoughts to sort of like direct it to them, and they're not focused on that, it's almost like power to me, and they just keep going and they use it, because you're literally giving all your power and your energy away to the other person.
Absolutely, I completely agree with you. Because it's like they're taking whatever energy, and especially if this is somebody that's focused on themselves, they're taking all of that and alchemizing all of that. And
so it's not negative.
It tends to work, and people don't realize that. They don't realize how much of their power they're giving away to the other person. Right? Because like you said, if you're focused, externally focused, you're focused on somebody's reality and somebody's journey, that means it's literally taking you away from you.
From your own.
Taking you away from, imagine taking yourself away from you and then going into somebody's reality.
Exactly.
Right? Like that is almost like giving your money. Like I want to use the analogy of like you have,
because
like
energy is currency. It's our currency.
You're giving your currency away to the other person without realizing it. Instead of like taking all of that energy and going internally, because I think people are not ready to face themselves. They're not ready to face their shadows. Not even shadows. They're not ready to face their desires. Right? How many people are not ready to face their desires, to go within and figure out like, what are my desires? What do I need to do to overcome my fears, in
Yeah.
order to realize my desires, right? Instead of that, you take that energy and you put it on someone else, right? Instead of like putting that on yourself, so that like you're in touch with yourself. Because when you're in touch with yourself, then you realize that the fulfillment wasn't even external,
Exactly.
right? It's internal, because when you
yeah.
bring that all energy and you go within, then you do the inner work, you face your desires, you face your shadows, you realize, okay, in order for me to claim my desires, to claim my gifts, there are things that I need to work on. There are things that I need to alchemize in order to get there, right?
Yeah.
Because you're putting all of that energy, then you find yourself in a place where you're like, okay, like I actually really am okay, I'm content.
I'm content.
Right? I don't need, you realize then that's when you get to where we're at, where you realize that actually it was never about the external thing. Yes, it's amazing. Like we're not saying that you shouldn't have money, like we talked about last week, like money's amazing. It affords you like a lot of things. That's not what we're saying, but what we're saying is that internal fulfillment and that internal peace and calmness is nothing that money can buy.
Absolutely.
Right? And when you're at that place, then and you're calm and regulated, you're able to make more conscious choices. You're able to, like, if you're in touch with your desire, you're like, okay, I'm calm and regulated. The energy that I want to operate from to externalize my desires is completely different from that energy of like, oh my gosh, that person has this thing,
and
that
so
person like they did something to get where they're at. Like you're just projecting that negative energy. Like bring that all to you. Right, so that you can realize your desires.
Yeah, and
right?
then it also, I think when you do that, it also helps you to like take aligned action externally as well. Because when you're looking at somebody else and you're comparing and you're desiring what they have, you might end up going after their dream and what they're doing. And that dream may not be aligned.
How many people do that?
With you.
Yeah.
Because that's their path, that's their journey. It may not be what you want to do. And so I think a lot of people do that and then they face so much resistance and it's so hard and it ends up draining you because it's not what you were meant to do.
Right.
But if you stop, focus, go inward, you know, look at, okay, they have that, I would want that, but how can I have it my way?
Right,
and
because
so
your signature is unique, your blueprint is unique, you need to be you. I can't be Joy, like even if I wanted to, I can't.
Exactly. And so when you take action from that point, then everything flows and works, and it works out in your own way.
Absolutely.
And it feels effortless. And
because when you're authentic with who you are truly, that's when the universe rewards you.
Exactly.
Like when you try to be someone else, you're speaking not out of embodiment, but you're speaking out of like seeing what the other person is doing, and you're taking that and learning from them and trying to be that. You really don't get rewarded by that. You get rewarded by being authentically connected to who you are and embodying your signature blueprint. Right? That's true. When like you start to like attracting, and that is what you were saying, like people that are so focused on themselves, right? They get a lot of hate because sometimes you're like they're considered like self-absorbed or like selfish or whatever, but then all of that energy that they're getting from people saying all of these things about them, they use that as fuel to and optimize all of that
and go forward. And you know what I say, I think also people who are authentic trigger people.
Absolutely.
Because it's like, why do you get to be
Why
yourself?
do you get to do that?
Why do you get to do that? Why do you get to be that way? And you know, the reason why also all those people are focused on them, it's because there really is something that this person is doing that makes them magnetic. It makes you want to look at it like,
because they're in touch with themselves.
They're really in touch. And that same magnetic energy is what brings them the people that they need to come across, whether it be that relationships, whether it be opportunities in whatever way that comes to them, because you're authentically you. And so that attracts, unfortunately, it attracts both the good and the bad. However, you're you, and so the universe is able to locate you and send you exactly what you need because you're living out of your own unique and authentic frequency. And so it finds you, and people who are out of touch with that, they see that and something in them wants to be that way, but because there's resistance, they think that what they can do is attack that person. And you know, through jealousy, through malice, through you know, pulling people down, through it happens in so many different ways. But what people need to realize and what we need to realize is that when that feeling comes up, it's only recognizing that there's something that I want, but how can I want it my way?
Right.
How can I get it
Right.
in my own way?
Yeah, it's information about like a part of you that is desiring something. If you see it as information, and that is literally what I tell people. And like, every single time somebody, like, there's a part of them that's feeling like, oh, that person is like ahead of me. And sometimes we think like, when we talk about like being behind who?
Behind what?
Behind who? Like behind
How do
what?
you know?
Right? Like who's ahead of you?
How do you
right?
know?
Like you're not living somebody else's life.
Because
right?
it's
If I was living your life,
conditioning.
if I was living your life, then you would be ahead of me in terms of like other societal expectation, right? That you have that I don't have, right? If I live your life. But fortunately, I'm not living your life. I'm living my life, right? So when you think about like I'm behind, in whose life?
Way, in what capacity? How are you even measuring
exactly, in whose life are you behind, right? That's, I think, the question you have to ask yourself. Like, if you're existing in somebody's reality, that's when you would feel behind, right? But
if you're like, in your own,
conditioning about, you're expected to have certain things. And it's external most of the time, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to have certain things. You have a car, husband, marriage, kids, whatever at a certain age, is what makes us feel behind, because you are measuring like an external. And honestly, like I've felt like, I shared an example earlier, but like I've felt like that at different points. I was thinking about another example. I think it was maybe November, October last year. I was reflecting on the feeling behind, because it's been a theme that I've had to like really go internal and work against, like the thoughts that come and the messaging that tells me like I'm feeling behind, right? And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about like this friend that I usually catch up with once a year. There's this guy that I went to grad school with. Usually we talk once a year. Like literally, it's like let's talk, because it doesn't live in Kenya.
Commitment. So,
it doesn't live in Kenya, so we talk once a year. And I remember like we talked in 2021, and like he was studying to be a doctor, so he's updating me about all of these things that he's doing in order to become a doctor, like the rotations he's doing. And at the time, I don't think I had a job, right? So I just kind of felt like, oh my gosh, like I'm behind, right? Not because I want to be a doctor, but there's a part of me that feels like, oh, like I don't have like this external thing that people have, right? And then we talked again in 2022, and he was like, hey, so my girlfriend and I are engaged. We got engaged. We travel. We got engaged.
And of course, that also triggered something.
Yeah. So at the time, like I had a job when he told me this, but I'm like, oh, like he's ahead, quote unquote, right? Because he has this thing that has happened. Where like I don't have anything like that. So kind of, I feel like he's put here by the universe to like reflect certain things, because he's a mirror and he's a reflection. Like every time he talks to me, and then like it's the meaning I make out of our conversation and what he says, right? It has nothing to do with him, but he's reflecting some things that, maybe I might be feeling some type of way, and it's my job to go and do the work internally of like, okay, like what is it that, why are you feeling like you're behind? And, but like when he told me that he got engaged, I was like, oh, I felt some type of way. And then the next year we talked, and he had gotten married.
And you still felt some type of way.
So I had gotten married. I was like, okay, this is it. Because clearly I felt like I was in the same exact spot. When, since we had talked the previous year, I had a job, but like nothing had progressed in terms of like relationship, or I hadn't moved to a different city or a different country. He had literally moved cities, and he was married.
He was doing the most.
Exactly.
My God.
So I felt like I'm literally in the same exact spot. And so then I was, I think maybe a few months later, I was reflecting on that and being like, okay, I feel like we really, really don't take stock of like how much we're growing internally. So when you're feeling behind, it's mostly because of an external thing.
I agree.
Whereas like I was reflecting, I was like, I am not the same person when I talked to him in 2021. By the time I talked to him in 2022, I had grown, I had expanded internally, right? By the time I talked to him in 2023, I had grown even more, right? By the time I next talked to him, I had more consciousness, I had more awareness, I was reacting differently. I had grown and expanded so much within, but like the feelings of like, oh, I'm in this exact same spot were because of this external things.
Yeah.
So why is it that like we don't take stock of like how much you're ahead, quote unquote, right? How much you're growing internally, and you're just when you're thinking of how behind you are, it's mostly about an external thing, right? It's not about like an internal growth. It's not an internal growth, and so that taught me like a huge lesson about like the importance of actually also prioritizing like the expansion, the unseen things the things that are intimate that other people cannot see, but you yourself, you know how much you've grown, right? Like those are equally, even more, I would say even more important, right? Because like what is more important than feeling like peace, feeling regulated, feeling calm, feeling fulfilled within? No money, no amount of money can buy that.
Because the people who have a lot of like the external success, but then internally they're at war. Because the best thing would be to have like a balance where you have the internal content and fulfillment, and then you also have the external success to show for it. But I've seen so many people who have all the external wealth, success, everything that you could ever think of, but internally they're a mess.
Right.
I mean, we see it all the time with celebrities. They're famous, they're wealthy, they have literally anything and everything that money could buy, but a lot of them end up in rehab. A lot of them end up overdosing on, you know, substance abuse and things like that. And so I think there's no one right way. I say walk the path and walk the journey and do what feels right for you. And I think I would say we're always where we're meant to be. I know it's so cliche.
No, it's so cliche, but you're exactly where you need to be.
Exactly where you need to be in this now moment every single time. And every day is a day to make new decisions, to make new choices, and to walk towards your desires and towards what you want to have.
Right. Because there's no destination. Like this is literally, I feel like if there's one huge theme in a podcast series, it's about
the journey.
There no being a destination. There's a journey, and I think the conditioning makes you think like there's a destination somewhere where you need to get to. And we've talked about this a lot. Like there's no destination, and once you drop the destination, you drop the future. Like in the future, I need to be here. When you get to the future, you're not gonna be like, oh my God, I'm in the future. It's gonna be today. It's gonna be
in
the present moment
and now.
Right? So when you begin to remove like there, right? You remove that that paradigm of being there completely
and just
from your psyche.
Here and
just
now.
remove it.
I think
remove
life will become so much easier, so much more beautiful.
Because you're just focused on that day. You're focused on, you know, today this is how I want to show up. This is the energy that I want to bring. This is the intention that I want to bring today, right? And embody that as you go through the day.
Absolutely.
Literally, that's what I'm telling myself these days. It's like, when I wake up in the morning, I set an intention, like what are the qualities that I want to embody?
That's beautiful.
I want to embody patience. I want to embody love. I want to embody kindness, like throughout the day, right? And when you set that and you actually try to embody those things as you go through the day, right? You just focus on that. You focus on what you have in front of you, right? That is what's more important than trying to, you know, overthink and have anxiety about like getting somewhere where there's really no destination, right? You don't even know if you're going to be alive tomorrow. And that is the thing. Like, how do you know? You know, how do you know that like the future, the day, whatever date that you have, right? In your mind, like by this date, I need to have this. How do you know you're going to be alive? Right? Because the only thing you're guaranteed is this moment. Now, right? You're not even guaranteed tomorrow. So like measuring yourself against a future that doesn't even exist, I think it's a disservice to yourself. Because it takes you, the moment you focus on there, it takes you away from here.
From this moment.
Right? And then therefore you're not going to enjoy, and you're going to get to that whatever date maybe you had set and you had put, and maybe you have the thing that you were thinking about, right? And you look behind, you're like, I should have enjoyed those. Do you have those moments where you're like,
I have it.
Especially
all the time.
I look at like my college days and how much fun I used to have, or there are times where like maybe I was overthinking something and I'm like, those were the good days. You know, I should have enjoyed it more, right? Because if you take yourself away from the journey, you look back and you're like, oh my God, like I should have enjoyed myself.
I miss
more.
that. I have those moments very often, on a regular basis, particularly now. And I look back and I was like, why was I worrying about that? I literally, it did nothing to take away from what I would have experienced anyway. I should have just been in it, should have enjoyed it. I should have enjoyed that friendship more. I should have enjoyed that environment more. I should have enjoyed that season of my life more. But then most of the time we really beat ourselves up at every single opportunity that we get. And you know, like you said, it takes energy away from enjoying that present moment, and we're constantly like just in the future, so future focused. It's not the way to live, and I wish we didn't. And it's a form of control, because we want to know, we want to control, we want to make sure everything works out perfectly. And it's a lesson that I'm learning to just take one step at a time, one day at a time, be here now, and that it's about the journey, not about the destination.
Yeah, and a reminder that no, you're not living somebody else's life. So being behind, you're the only one. There's no one else in your reality, right? There's literally no one else living your life. I feel like that is something we have to like imprint in our mind. Like there's no one else, right? Yes, you have relationships, but those people also have their lives, right? So don't think about them, right? When you're thinking about like being behind or whatever, think about like, there's no one else ahead of you. There's no one behind you. There's no one ahead of you. It's just you. Right? So then how do you cultivate a practice where you enjoy where you are at, right? At any given moment.
I think you gave some really good pointers, setting the intention at the beginning of the day. Like, this is what I'd like to embody today. This is what I think it brings presence in the now moment. I think it's consciously thinking of whenever your mind starts to wander, it's like, oh, that's their journey and I'm on mine. And sort of like bringing it back. And I think we can really anchor that in with like setting intentions of, this is where I'm at, this is what I'd like to embody in this now moment.
And the beautiful thing about that is just like, it's like your higher self takes over at certain times when you're out of alignment of what you had set. Like I told you earlier this morning, as I was washing, I was preparing to make my coffee, and because you were going to arrive like in the next 10 minutes, and I hadn't made my breakfast, I hadn't made my coffee, so I'm like quickly washing my like coffee powder filter, and I'm washing it because I'm like rushing to make coffee so that I can have coffee, so that by the time you get here we can get started, right? So, and then I caught myself being like, why are you rushing? Literally, I was asking myself, like, where are you rushing to? Where are you going? Right? I realized, like, sometimes I have so high expectations of, like, things need to be perfect. Like I need to get there, like, quickly, right? So I had to remind myself, because I had set the intention in the morning. Today, I wanted to embody love. I wanted to embody kindness. I wanted to embody patience. Those 3 things I had said in the morning. So therefore, like, my higher self was like, hey, remember that you had set an intention to be patient, to be loving towards yourself, to be kind towards yourself. And what does that mean? It means that you're not rushing yourself, right? Like, literally, where are you going? Like, I was asking myself that.
It's a form of meditation when you're in the moment.
Yes, I slowed down.
Like, when you're making it, when you're sitting down, you're taking that sip, feeling the warmth of the cup, savoring. Like, it's your life can literally be a meditation if you slow down and allow yourself to experience it.
Because there's nowhere else to get to, right? This moment is what you have right now, right? So live this moment, right? So it's like, those intentions are so powerful, because they remind you that, like, hey, this is don't go away from you. Stay here.
Stay centered in the center.
Literally, I have every single time I have to remind myself, come back, don't go there. Don't put your energy elsewhere, because where your attention goes, energy flows there, right? Energy flows out of you. And when it flows out of you, you don't have any life force to even be thinking about your desires and things that you want to
because it's
embody.
Scattered, it's elsewhere, it's out there, it's not in you.
So this is such a beautiful topic. This is a beautiful topic, and I think because there are a lot of people that will relate to this, so I think it's something that we'll have to do a part 2 about.
Definitely,
right? This is definitely something that we'll talk about, because I think it's such an important topic because of this societal conditioning. I feel like there's no single person that doesn't relate with feeling behind at certain times.
Oh my goodness,
right?
We all do.
So we would love to hear from you, right? right? Because
We
if
would.
you've been feeling behind or you felt behind in your past, like we would really love to hear from you and
Let us
engage with
know.
you, right? Because like we want comments, we want people to tell us like, are there certain aspects we didn't address? Is there something about feeling behind that you want to contribute to this conversation? Please leave us comments on YouTube. Also, you can email us. We have our email in the description. You can also get in touch with us on Instagram. Both of us, our Instagram are in the description. We would love to hear your comments and address anything about this topic.
Sure.
Right?
And the feelings that it evoked in you as we were having the conversations. We'd really love to get
This
to
was
know
an
that.
amazing
Yeah.
conversation, and I think it was like long overdue.
Yeah.
Because I think it's such an important topic to talk about.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. All right.
Yeah. Until next time. It's been real.
Bye.